Okay, Pop.
Yes.
So I just wanted to talk to you about your experience when you were in like World War II. So I wanted to talk to you about like your enlistment, what boot camp was like, what your family's reactions were to you deciding to go into the service, as well as like what your experience while you were in the Coast Guard and then when you were returning.
Okay.
So what was your decision to enlist in the Coast Guard?
It was because it was in 1940 and there wasn't any work around. So I went with my buddy. His name was Zoil Kish. I says, let's join the Navy. And he says, sounds good, Ed. So we walk in the recruiting office, and the recruiting officer said to him, I told you to get the hell out of here and don't you ever come back until you fix your teeth. Got a hold of me, so you come with me. I thought, boy, okay, I'm in. So he took me back in there and he showed me all these beautiful warships, nice blue sea. I said, boy, this is for me. And he said, well, you're only 18, so you must have your parents' signature. So I said, okay, that's fine. So I went home and I said to Mom, my mother, I says, I'm going to join the Navy and I need your signature. I don't know what the hell flew out that green door first, me or all that paraphernalia he gave me. She said, no way. I got one in the service already, that was my brother, and I'm not going to have to worry about both of you. I'm not signing. Now this was in the Navy. Okay. So she had a friend of ours, a friend of my father's. My dad was a trailer driver for General Motors, who carted all their cars around the country, you know. And he said to my mother, said, Ella, let the boy go in the Coast Guard. I put a hitch in there, and it's a good outfit. So with that, she said, okay, and she signed. And then when I went in the Coast Guard, I found out that the Navy ran the Coast Guard during wartime, so I was in the Navy anyway. That was in 1940.
So your family's reaction, was it surprising or were they very like receptive of you joining?
Let me see that one. Well, they weren't surprised, but I always said that my mother saved my life, because if I went in 1941 when I wanted to, well, you know what happened in Pearl Harbor. I probably would have been there. So,
Yeah.
so that's the story of that.
So when you obviously had to go to like a boot camp, right?
Yes.
What was your boot camp like? Like what were your thoughts?
Excuse me. Good morning. Had to say hello.
Good morning, Ed.
I'm sorry, I had to do that.
When I went in, I was in real good shape, and boot camp for me was easy. And I had a very good experience. Well, to back up a little bit, when I went in the service, I met this fella at Trenton train station, because Rose was with me, Mom and Dad. And I met this guy, Casanova. His brother had a business where he sold all this stuff for women, like lipstick and all this kind of stuff. So we became very good friends. And the first thing they told you when you went into service, don't volunteer for anything. And he was talked into volunteer for KP kitchen work because they told him that he would get a 48-hour pass. And that way he could jump a train and come home for a day or so.
Yeah.
He never got it. He used to have to get up about 4 o'clock in the morning, go work in the kitchen. When he would come home, he smelled like onions, potatoes, and all kinds of vegetables. So boot camp for me was very easy.
Is there anything while you were in boot camp that you didn't expect?
Yes, there was 2 things that I could think of. First of all, when you first went in, they give you shots. And those shots, let's see how I put that, could consist of maybe 4 different medicines. So it was hard. And after you get it, you couldn't hardly pick up your arm. So there was this big Jewish fella, and he was ahead of me. He got his shot, and he said, "Oh, I'm feeling sick." So he opened the window and he pushed his head out the window. So I didn't hardly expect that, but I got through that. And then everything you did, you had to, was on the double. And one day we called to march to the gym. Marched to the gym, went in, there's 2 lines of boxing gloves. And wherever you stopped, whoever was across from you, you had to fight with them. So that was easy for me because, like I said, Guy Casanova, he didn't know a thing about boxing. So first thing you know, he's on the floor. I didn't knock him out, but I knocked him down. And somebody came and just tapped me on the shoulder. It was Gene, Jack Dempsey, the world champion fighter. And he took the gloves away from Guy and he just gave them to me and he put them on. And we start shadow boxing.
Did you really?
He never hit me because if he hit me, I wouldn't be here to talk to you. So that was a great experience. And
Where was boot camp? Where'd you have to go?
Manhattan Beach, New York. It was right next to the Merchant Marine Academy. And that's where our boot camp was.
And then when you got done boot camp, where did you have to go?
Okay, I kept asking for sea duty. So they finally got tired of hearing me that, and they gave me sea duty, all right. But what it was a buoy tender. And if you know what buoys are, when you pick them up and paint them, or scrape them, paint them, put them back as markers, you know. So that wasn't such a very good duty because it was like an old tugboat, and it only had 12-man crew, and it was pretty close. And one of the problems I found in the beginning that I was the only Yankee on that ship, and all the rest of them were Texas, Oklahoma, and all southern states. And of course, I was the only Yankee, and there was a couple of remarks made about me being a Yankee.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I straightened that right out, right quick. And most of the thing I straightened out was this.
Uh-huh.
So,
So your like main like base, where was that? Where did you do most of your like work?
you mean after I got a boot camp?
Yeah.
Okay, it put me on that buoy tender, and that was stationed in St. Petersburg, Florida.
Mm-hmm.
So I was married, and I was able to bring Nana to St. Petersburg,
Mm-hmm.
and we had an apartment there, and the apartment's name was Johnson Court,
Uh-huh.
and that was real nice. And everybody liked Nana, and she got a job, the same kind of job that she had in Trenton.
Mm-hmm.
And let's see. Oh, and like I say, we had this beautiful old house, and Mom rented a room to this elderly man, and all she did was make breakfast for him, and then he left. He was gone for all day.
Mm-hmm.
And that was nice. But I just want to get back to boot camp.
Uh-huh.
I had 2 strikes. I was supposed to make second class.
Uh-huh.
And I was a guy that was supposed to...
When they dropped the atomic bomb.
We're still doing the Coast Guard, by the way.
Were you still in you were still in the Coast Guard?
Yeah.
So how did that like affect everything or all of your jobs and duties?
When they dropped it, when Truman dropped the bomb, or ordered to drop the bomb, that was the end of everything.
Mm-hmm.
It was over. And when it was over, they didn't keep us in the service. They wanted to get rid of us as soon as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Then they went after paying our wages, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So, and my brother was in the Navy Seabees, and they're the ones that made the airfields where our bombers could land. But then when the war, after Truman had the bomb dropped, and that was the end of everything.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when the Japanese, they quit.
So when you got out of the Coast Guard, what did you like return to? How was it returning back to like civilization?
Yes, well, before I went away, I worked for the railroad for 9 months,
Mm-hmm.
and they had to keep our jobs for us for when we returned.
Mm-hmm.
So then I returned, and I went right back on the railroad,
Mm-hmm.
and stayed there for a total of 40 years before I decided. I said to Nana, well, that's enough, I quit. And we went down to the Railroad Retirement Board in Philadelphia,
Mm-hmm.
find out how much retirement we were going to get.
Mm-hmm.
And boy, it was great. $3,406 a month,
Uh-huh.
which was good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for letting me interview you.
Oh, good. We done?
Yeah.